Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We got our best bets on the hockey game tonight, later in the hour. Jays Sox tonight down at the Rogers Center. Frank Corrado will join us later in the hour on Game 5 on Mitch Marner, Filip Hronek, Nathan McKinnon, Team Canada. A lot to get into with Frankie a little bit later this hour. And Sam Mitchell will join us. Sammy could be out working on his short game right now. Sam could be on the course. Who knows what Sam Mitchell is up to?
I don't know about you guys. I'm the first one in February to say give us some weather, but it's disgusting. I don't enjoy it, man.
It's really hot.
Dude,
it's really scorching hot.
We deserve some weather. I just don't find it enjoyable. The one good thing about it is I'm never hungry, man, when it's this weather. Like, you just you don't eat. It's just like, God, I just can't do it.
And it's so hot, you can't. Like, I played this morning. I want to give a shout-out to a few guys. I played with Barry, Mendel, Mike, awesome guys, big contributors to the First Tee Foundation,
Nice.
Golf Canada's First Tee, which gets kids playing coast to coast. Saw Lauren out there from Sleeman's. Our buddy L.A., Lawrence Applebaum, was out there hacking and whacking and playing and doing his thing. And it was just an awesome morning with those three guys. And we went out early, like very early, and it was still so hot.
Yeah,
you can't.
I can't.
You
I
go
don't
out
know
at
how.
7:40 and it's hot.
You wonder, like, I have to play at that time. You get an 11 o'clock tee time in that weather, you are torched, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were leaking oil coming down the stretch.
Tiger leaking type of thing.
Sweating profusely. But awesome guys. Barry, Mendel, Mike, shout out to you guys. Awesome guys. Awesome four-ball this morning. Great to see them. First Tee, really, really cool initiative through Golf Canada. So shout out. We'll see what Sammy's up to here. And, the Boston Celtics, the city of Boston, we talked about it a couple of hours ago. Like, they had a slump where they hadn't won a championship in, 4 or 5 years, and people in Boston are freaking out. Like, that just puts it into perspective. We talk about Toronto all the time, and people have this, some people have this belief. It's too hard here. The media is too crazy. Do you know what they do in Boston? They go nuts in Boston. You have a bad season, you're out. You're done. Unacceptable. Fire everybody. Get rid of everybody. And you know what it leads to is the ownership realizes we got to win or these people are going to freak out. And
what a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they do. The Patriots win, the Red Sox win, the Bruins win, the Celtics win. And sure, there's ups and downs. Of course there is. But they're constantly smarter than everyone. They're invested. They're into it. And they are challenged. The media there is crazy. The fan base is nuts in Boston. And no one uses it as an excuse. Just too hard to play here. Can't do it. Can't win in Boston. Too hard. Too much of a fishbowl.
It was pointed. It was pointed out to me last hour. Like, Boston got rid of Marcus Smart. Like, he was one of the, bold
core
decisions. Core piece. Bold decisions. When was that? Last year?
Yes.
Like, that was. They got rid of this cat, and that was a little bit polarizing in Boston because he was an unbelievable player.
Fan favorite. Defensive player of the year type guy and like the heartbeat of the team.
Why did he move off him, though?
Well, it didn't fit. Didn't fit what they were looking for, clearly.
That's cutthroat. That's cutthroat.
That's
We're going to take a chance.
About.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about is if it's not working, you make hard business decisions. They moved away from him. It could have blown up. It didn't. They won a championship. So that's the challenge for every manager. That's the challenge for every organization is moving off of players that you love, players that are entrenched in the city, but you have to have a different look. That's the difference.
Well, and you do wonder about, the other teams in your market challenging you, where if you were in Boston and you were under the umbrella of the Brady Belichick Patriots dynasty, like that would be tough. Right? If you're running the Red Sox, if you're running the Bruins, if you're running the Celtics, you're like, that is the bar that's being set. Look at what these guys do every single year. It's like internal competition within the market. And using Toronto as the example, like there just isn't competition right now in Toronto.
Right.
Like there was 5 years ago. Like, remember when the Raptors won, it was like the Leafs are knocking on the door. The Leafs better get cooking here because the Raptors found a way to break through.
The
Blue Jays were right there as well. They were moving, they were out of the 15-16 run, and they were transitioning, but it was like, all right, Vladdy's here, Bo's here, go sign Ryu, go sign Springer. We got to get cooking here. And now you look at where it is. The Leafs are a good team. They're a playoff team every year, but we know their history in the playoffs. The Blue Jays are under 500. The Raptors are a mess. Toronto FC's a mess. The Argos don't have a quarterback right now. I don't know who's keeping anyone honest in the city of Toronto right now in terms of the sporting teams.
I know they're all not aligned on a calendar, but 4 months from now, who would you bet on? Like, obviously the Raptors, they're in a rebuild.
Raptors are so far removed from being competitive.
They're not a factor in anything.
Yeah, they're
it's got to be the Leafs.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be. I think so.
Right?
I think so. I mean, the Jays, they won 89 games a year ago. They made the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. They're, 2 games under 500? They're not a disaster, the Blue Jays. Just they can't hit. It's very simple.
Right.
Like, they might be 2 or 3 bats and a couple of guys getting back into form from being that pick. But I think it probably would be the Leafs at this point if you had to put money on one of the Toronto teams to do it. But the NBA season has now come to an end, and Boston wins in 5, basically dismantling the Mavs. They were the best team all year. It was a pretty incredible run. And to chat about it, we're joined now by our TSN NBA analyst, longtime player, longtime coach of the year, one of our favorites, Sam Mitchell. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing just fine, guys.
So what do you make of this Celtics team? How do you put into perspective, how dominant they were all season?
Well, you guys said they were the best team.
Mm-hmm.
They proved it from day one. They never took their foot off the gas, and they've been the best team. So they did what the best teams often do. They kind of had an easy pass through the Eastern Conference, and then they had a relatively easy pass through the finals. So, give them credit. They only lost 3 games, and the 3 games they lost, it was most of game 2 where they had a letdown. But other than that, they was just lights out, man. And Tatum and Brown and Drew Holiday and White and Al and Porzingis, I think this is the best team in basketball, and I think they're going to be the best team in basketball next year.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the NBA right now. There's been 6 different winners in 6 years, Sam. There's been a lot of turnover in the NBA Finals. Do you think, how can Boston find a way to do it again next year?
Guys, it's not going to be that much of a stretch. If Porzingis comes back healthy, they're going to be the dominant team again. They got 2 6'6" guards in the backcourt. They got a guy in Drew Holiday that may be the best guard when it comes to playing in the playoffs since Dennis Johnson. And then they got 2 guys, Tatum and Brown, that can just go get it on both ends. And those guys prove they're just not one-dimensional players. Look at the job Jaylen Brown did to Luka. Luka had, 8 turnovers in one game and 9 in another. Think about that. Jaylen Brown himself forced Luka into 38 turnovers. 38. So when you look at what he and Tatum do defensively, and then you add in what they do offensively, guys, they're good. It's no other way around. And I don't see anyone beating them next year. I just don't. Who's going to beat them? Because if you come out the West, you're going to be so beat up coming out the West, then what are you going to do? Look at Dallas, what they had to do to get to the finals. They had to go through the 1 seed, then they had to go through Denver, then they had to go 1 seed, Minnesota, and then who else they beat? The Clippers. Mm-hmm. And look what the Boston Celtics had to do. They beat the Heat, who was just a bad team all year. And then they beat Cleveland, who was just average. And then they just ran through Indiana. Everybody kept saying, well, Indiana could have won the series. Man, stop. You got beat 4-0. You get beat 4-0, you could not have won the series. What are people talking about? Just because the games are close. If you lose every close game, what does that mean? That means you lose close games.
Mm-hmm. Sammy, what do you make of the Celtics coach? Every time I look at him, I think about you because you're like the prototypical, you're tall, good-looking dude. When I see the Celtics coach, I'm like, he just doesn't look like the normal NBA. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but you got to give him props for the way he did his business, don't you?
I would say this. I got a chance to meet Joe Mazzulla for the first time last night. I was in Boston working for Sirius. Got a chance to interview him. I was impressed with his demeanor. I was impressed with his character. I was impressed with how he handled that team for such a young guy. And he did a fantastic job. And for all the criticism that he took throughout the year about the way this team played, he never wavered. he stuck to his guns. He believed in the way that team should play, the way it was put together. He and Brad Stevens put their team together, and they performed that way. And then you look at how he got this team to sacrifice. Nobody wins championships without sacrifices, especially if you got good players. And so I'm impressed with Joe Mazzulla. And the one thing I whispered to him at the end of the interview, and I told him, enjoy this. Because you can tell the stress on his face when you're supposed to do something and they did it. But I just wanted to make sure I whispered to him, he did a fantastic job. He deserved all the accolades that come with it. And he deserves to cut himself a little slack and enjoy this for at least one day.
Well, he's only 35 too,
Yeah.
Sam. Like, he's a young guy, man. You were coaching pretty quickly after you hung up your playing career, but like at that age, I know it's a young man's game, but Al Horford's, how old is Al? Like, Joe Mazzulla sitting there talking. Exactly. I mean, he's got to keep him in check, and the guy's older than him.
Well, I mean, look, it's all about respect. Players respect knowledge. They don't care about how old you are. You could be 670 or you could be 38, but they respect hard work and knowledge and putting them in a position to be successful. And that's what Joe Mazzulla and that staff did. They put them in position to be successful. He had the best team, and he knew what to do with the best team. Some guys get a good team, and they don't know what the hell to do with it. He knew exactly what to do with that team, and he kept his foot on the gas, and this team was lights out all year. They never stumbled. They never had 4 or 5 game losing streaks. You never heard any dissension coming out of that locker room. That was a together team from start to finish, and that's why they won the championship.
With Sam Mitchell. So where do you stand on this J.J. Redick to the Lakers as the next head coach situation? If that ends up happening, do you think it can work out for J.J.?
God, I'm never going to say a guy be a good coach, but it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. I can't wait to see it happen. I'm like everybody else. I just can't wait to see it. I'm hoping he and LeBron is together because if it goes south, I just can't see LeBron taking taking the heat. And I can't see J.J. Redick taking the heat either. Both of them seem to like to deflect things. And so it's going to be must-see TV if things start going south in L.A.
I agree, man. J.J., I think he'd happily say, go talk to LeBron, man. He screwed up. Not me. He'd be the first coach that would ever do that. And, the whole podcast thing, I don't know, man. Like, how would you feel about that, Sam, if you're coming off the bench or you're even a starter or whatever, you got some, chops in the game and you're a Laker and you've been around for a while, and J.J. gets the head coaching job, and you understand he and LeBron have this kind of separate relationship that is now going to have to develop into coach and player relationship.
I would be concerned. It would be concerned, and J.J. going to have to be concerned about it because he's going to have to understand quick, fast, and hurry. He's coaching more than one guy, LeBron James. He's coaching the team. And some guys are going to not feel too confident about that. The fact that, LeBron and J.J. have become so close off the court, and now all of a sudden he's about to become the coach, and now how does that work? I mean, is LeBron going to be in his office telling him to line up minutes? You guys don't know. Players, we're crazy anyway. So anytime something looks suspicious, we're going to take it and run 1,000 miles with it. So it's going to be interesting to see if LeBron comes back with the Lakers like I think he is. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with it.
Yeah. Hey, you throw Bronny in there, too, man. That's a 3-ring circus, Sam.
Man, stop. Stop. We're talking about a guy. I mean, don't put all this pressure on the kid to average 4 points a game. We need to stop.
I know.
And it's just too much, man. I hope this kid understands what he's in for because the criticism is going to be unmerciful if he's in the league and can't play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will.
It's going to be unmerciful. It would be no mercy.
Yeah.
There will be no mercy. Just like your short game. How's that looking these days, Sam? How we playing?
Well, guys, I just had my knee replaced 8 weeks ago. So I'm dealing with some health issues right now trying to get this knee right. So I'm just hitting balls and playing about 4 or 5 holes at a time, just trying to get back healthy. But, hey, I can't complain at the end of the day.
All right.
How's the short game, though, Sammy? Is it dialed in?
No. My game is just as ragged as probably as ragged as your jump shot.
Okay.
So it's bad.
That is awful. That is horrendous.
Tough.
It's bad. But, guys, think about it. Who's going to challenge Boston in the East?
I don't know. Well, Embiid's talking a big game. Like Joel said, Philly was hurt, and that's why they couldn't put up a test for Boston. And I don't know, the Knicks, if they bring back OG and Tibbs doesn't run them all into the ground, I mean, can the Knicks take a run at them next year or what?
Yeah, they can, but look at all those ifs you're talking about. So far, since we've seen Joel Embiid, when has he been healthy in the playoffs?
Never. Seems like it anyway.
Okay, and since we've been knowing Tibbs, who's a friend of mine, when has he not ran players in the ground?
Never.
Okay then. I mean, look, coaches have tendencies, like players. And right now, everybody keeps saying, well, if this guy stay healthy, well, think about something. Not only is Boston good, but the only guy they really have to worry about getting injured is Porzingis. And as long as you got Al Horford as a backup, come on, man, he's the best backup in the league at the center position. I mean, he's outstanding. So, to me, you got Tatum and Brown and those two guards in the backcourt. I just don't see anybody in the East beating them in the playoffs 4 times.
Yep.
I just don't see it.
I hear you. I'm not
guys
arguing with that.
They defended Luka lights out and Kyrie. Everybody said Kyrie struggled because of fans. No, Kyrie struggled because they had 2 6'6" guards on him. That's why he struggled. The fans, I had never seen a boo block up jump shot or get a steal yet. But I've seen 6'6", long arms, athletic. I've seen those guys lock people down, and that's what Drew Holiday and Derek White did. They made it difficult. And then think about it. The way Dallas played defense, they had Kyrie switching on to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're too big for him. So Kyrie was just getting worked over, man, and he was just too small to do anything about it.
Luka's unreal. He's so fun to watch. He's an unbelievable player, but he was emotional throughout the finals. He obviously fouled out and was yelling at Jason Kidd. You better challenge that, and taking on the refs basically every single possession, or it felt that way. Do you believe he can channel that? Does he have to channel that? What does Luka take from this?
He just got to understand, guys. He can't waste all that energy doing that. And then the most important thing Luka got to do, guys, is get in shape.
Yeah.
Damn right, Sam.
Let's just tell the truth, dude. He got to get in shape. And the thing that's scary is look how freaking great he is out of shape. And I would tell him, take a page from the Joker. Once the Joker got in shape, he became the best player in the league, MVP back-to-back. Think about that. He's won 3 MVPs since he's gotten in shape. Now think about what Luka Doncic could do if he gets in shape. Now just think about that.
Yeah.
Scary. The guy led the league in scoring out of shape. He was the best player second half of the season out of shape. Think about how he's going to look and be if he's in shape.
Probably look like me. You want to talk about my jump shot? I'll take it to the hole and dunk on your ass, Sam. You'll have nothing to say.
I know, and then we'll all be in the hospital praying for you afterwards.
All right, Sam, great catching up with you, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
There's Sam Mitchell.
I love that guy.
I love Sam.
So
Yeah, it's a
funny.
great line. I've never seen a boo block a shot. He's right. Fans are all over Kyrie, and that stung. Like, he had to walk off the court last night. They were just grilling him, man.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about what Boston did was smart. Like, if Dallas is saying, okay, we got this superstar, Luka, and Jason Kidd came out and said, when you got one of the best players in the world, you should be chasing titles. That should be the idea every year. But they can't just say, we're going to run it back and hopefully it works. Like, they got to be looking at Kyrie saying, is this the guy that can really be the 2 guy off of Luka to get this done if we really want to do it? You have to ask the question.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's got to be an evaluation.
Yes.
Even Boston's going to evaluate who they have, what
and
they
I'm
have,
sure
what
they're
they
not
need
going to
do.
say everything was great, even though they did get to the finals, because that would just be unfair to everybody involved to say, we just got crushed and everything is great, because Luka's going to want to win a championship. And as Sam mentioned, he's got to do his part and get his ass in shape, because he just doesn't look like a professional athlete as good as a player as he is. He doesn't.
When you're close, you need, like, he needs help, but they need to revamp things. And because really, were they that close in the finals, or Dallas just got?
I mean, they got torched, man. Game 4
Exactly,
notwithstanding,
Boston.
it wasn't even close.
Right. So I mean, you evaluate, and you're right. He's got to get in shape. The Joker, I was going to throw in there. They probably trains with his brothers, his monsters too, right? Like those guys.
Oh yeah, man.
Chasing
Joker's
him
living
around.
his life, man. I saw him. Like, he was on a raft somewhere, and he loves his horses. Like, he loves his ponies back home.
He's got a good life, man.
Yeah.
Old school.
Yeah, he's a great player, man. Great player. All right, thanks to Sam. All right, we got Frankie Corrado coming up. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Game 5 Cup Final tonight. There's our boy Frankie Corrado. What's happening, Frankie? You ready for a big game tonight?
Yeah, big time. We just did our 6 p.m. Sports Center hit, and we're ready to go, man. Ready to go.
What were the main themes of those conversations?
So is Florida going to bounce back? Is that just a blip for Sergei Bobrovsky? And does the Edmonton Oilers' depth keep it going? Also, I added in something you might like. The star players for the Oilers have to be better than the star players for the Panthers. What do you think?
I love that.
I think that's low-hanging fruit, and you're better than that.
I guess my point is it took us until like 4 minutes into the hit to get to that, if that makes sense.
Well, I like that analysis.
We asked Johnny a question, Frankie. Matthew Tkachuk or Draisaitl, pick a pony for tonight.
Oh, I think Johnny said Draisaitl, so I'm going to say Tkachuk.
He did not say Draisaitl.
Johnny said Tkachuk.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah. So everyone's, I don't know, we're thinking the same thing. I think it's been a quiet series for Tkachuk, for sure. And if there was ever going to be a night where he was going to break out, why wouldn't it be tonight? Home ice, Stanley Cup on the line, like the big trade. This is going to be everything that's talked about afterwards with Bill Zito in the interviews and, when this franchise really changed. Like, I feel like all that stuff is kind of baked in for Tkachuk to have a big night if that were to happen.
Yeah, he's been disappointing, though.
Yeah.
Like, he's lucky his team's up 3-1. If it was 3-1 Oilers, he'd be getting crushed right now and deserve it. And, like, I don't think he's been great throughout the playoffs.
No.
It's
because of last year, too, Hayes.
That's it.
Because he was Captain Clutch. Every overtime, he's the guy that scored.
He set the bar so high last year. He was so good. And then he ran out of steam based on injury in the Cup Final. I'd say Draisaitl, personally. I mean, I didn't like Draisaitl's first 3 games at all. I liked it a lot better the other night. But as good as Tkachuk was in the playoffs last year, like Draisaitl consistently every year. And I know he's banged up and he doesn't look like he's at 100%, but I think the play is Draisaitl for me, Draisaitl versus Tkachuk. That said, I think the Florida Panthers are going to win tonight, so I'm not sure it matters if Draisaitl wins that matchup. If the Panthers win, it's completely irrelevant in the end.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is Tkachuk was really banged up last year, and so he doesn't get a full summer, and he has a good season. Now, I believe we're 59 or 60 days into the playoffs. And just think about the mental and physical grind. Like, everyone's going through it for sure, so it's an even playing field. But that guy specifically, for him to be, ready to play at the start of the season, and now we're 59 days into playing every other night, hard hockey. Like, I'm sure as much as Draisaitl might be banged up, Tkachuk is probably not 100% Matthew Tkachuk prior to what he was last year.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, Ian, when you play 60 games of hard hockey, 60 days of hard hockey like that, everybody's got ice bags. Everybody's dealing with something. It's just the magnitude of it, whether it's sore back, sore groin, sore knee. Connor Brown the other day, I don't know if you guys saw that. He came out, his hand was cut. I don't know what happened, a little scrum or something. All of a sudden he's cut, getting dealt with on the bench. Like, everybody's got nicks and bruises. But it's who can call on it. When you think about it, there's either one game left in the season, 2 or 3. That's it. It's 180 minutes of hockey, and that's a max if there's no overtime, or 60 minutes tonight. So it's all the effort has to be there, and all the cliches can come out, but nobody can have an off night, an off period. Like, you can't give an inch. Like, Edmonton can't fall asleep for 6 minutes and think there's gonna win a game tonight.
You're toast.
Frankie, what did you make of Mike Rupp's comment when he said, whoever wins this game tonight's going to win the Stanley Cup? Are you buying that?
No. I think the Panthers could theoretically lose tonight, and they could still win the series. Like, I don't know. It doesn't mean that just because they lost these 2 in a row, all of a sudden that's going to turn into 4 losses in a row. I think it's, I don't know how you guys felt when you played, but you get to the point in the season or you play for certain coaches, and you could recite exactly what the coach is going to tell you every period. It's like the same script they read off. Like, the stuff is the same every single night right now. It basically is going to come down to who makes fewer mistakes. Is your goaltender going to have a good night? And does someone have that a little extra play in them? Like that's really what we're talking about at this point in the playoffs.
Well, the third element on the ice is officiating. Let's not forget about that. And I'm sure you guys are seeing this, that the Florida Panthers have gone 14-0-1 in their last 15 games under ref Dan O'Rourke, including 5-0 in the playoffs.
You buy into that, Hayes.
The Oilers are 0-5 this postseason when O'Rourke is working.
He hates the Oilers.
Do we make anything of it? Danny O'Rourke, he loves South Florida.
That
hates
is a
Edmonton.
weird stat. That's
a crazy stat. Panthers 5-0 when he refs. Oilers 0-5 when he
Doesn't
refs.
the league look at that itself? Like I don't read a lot
If
into
I'm
this,
Ken
but isn't
Holland,
that stat stick
I'm
out enough where the
snapping if I'm
league
Holland.
looks at it and says maybe we got to get a different guy tonight?
Yeah.
Hold on,
If
but the
I-
Oilers have had power plays, have they not? Like they've had 13 power plays in this series. They can't complain about officiating at this point. They had one game. They had 5 power plays. They didn't score. Like
they're
officiating
1 for 13.
Yeah, officiating hasn't factored in to the point that's what's holding the Oilers back. They if their power play was 7 for 13. Like we'd be talking about a much different thing when it comes to the officials. So I don't read into that.
I'm
I
with
agree.
you, but
If I'm
stats
Ken
are
Holland,
pretty staggering there.
I write it on a piece of paper and I slide it under the door. Like you see, I saw Stephen Walcom. I'm sure he's the supervisor at the games. You go to the officiating room and you slide that under the door if you're Ken Holland and just go, here's a little stat for you guys. If anything, it's politicking. All it is politicking. It's nothing else. How many times have we seen coaches politic or managers and all of that? Little comment here. We're victims. Hey, we're hard done by, and that stat is kind of funny and staggering. I mean, is it with the Leafs? Is it McCauley? He has a bad record with the Leafs, right?
Yeah.
Is it Wes McCauley? Like
I think so, yeah.
There's certain guys that it just happens that the luck of the draw. Keep in mind, there's 2 refs out there. What's the other ref? What if the other ref is
that's a
like
good question.
12-0 for the Oilers? Then,
Yeah.
like
the other guy's like, why don't you detail what I'm all about? Maybe
exactly.
he's from St. Albert or something.
Yeah, exactly.
He's dying for an Oiler win tonight. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
What do you guys think of this? So it's 8-1 last game, right, for the Oilers. If that game is a 2-1 or 3-1 game, do you think the Panthers go back into the dressing room, hop on the bird, and say, "Yeah, we're right there. We don't need to change much. Status quo. We'll get them on the next one." Or do you think because it's 8-1, it kind of catches their attention a little bit, and they think, "Okay, we're going to need an extra gear here. Like we can't win a Stanley Cup, and we can't close these guys off in cruise control." So I have a feeling it's Florida's best game tonight. It's their most urgent effort, whatever you want to call it. But I think that really catches their attention.
I think 2 things too, Frankie. You want to win it tonight. You don't want to get on the bird to Alberta. Like now, all of a sudden, you've opened a momentum. All of the noise. It's 2 days off in between the game. I know people say it's a must win for both sides. I just think for different reasons. You laid it out, Frankie. Florida's got 3 opportunities to do this. They don't want to get on the bird to Alberta. That's the last thing you want to do. So you got to try and finish it off tonight on home ice. That being said, though, like I look at both sides and what they're capable of. What they've been able to do, they've got now 8 goals on Bobrovsky in the last 4 periods, or 3 periods, really. And that might be something where they're seeing something on Bob going, okay, I saw they were shooting from distance where in the first couple games it was in tight and he was stopping everything. Last game he wasn't sharp. In the previous game where they got 3 on him, there were some deflections and shooting a little quicker, not allowing him to get set. You adjust. You have pre-scouts. That's I'll circle it. If Bob has a game tonight, I think Florida wins. If Bob is a little shaky and maybe Edmonton's seen something or getting to him, all bets are off.
Well, that's where the 2-day layoff, that gets loud. If Bob gets shelled tonight and the Panthers, they'll protect him publicly, they'll say the right things. But if everyone knows privately, they're like, man, we played so well, and this guy
This
stunk.
is the Bob from last year's
That's
final.
trouble because he runs hot and he runs cold throughout his career. And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for it.
Well, I'm
Like,
giving
why
him the
all
benefit of the doubt.
So am I.
Hayes.
So am I.
Like, this guy's been a rock star the whole playoffs.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, even after that performance, it would not shock me if he's just a wall in there tonight.
Yeah.
Like just an absolute stud.
I think so too.
He's given you one every series, right? He's had one where he lets in, like, I think he let in 5 in the first, or 6 against Tampa, 5 against Boston, another 5 against the Rangers, or 4. Like, every series has had that one game. It's never turned into 2. This would be the first series this year where if it happens tonight, it would be 2 bad games in a row. So to your point, like, he's earned the benefit of the doubt for having a big bounce back performance.
Frankie Corrado with us. You're familiar with being a right shot defenseman in Vancouver?
Vaguely.
I don't know if you're familiar with 8 years at $7.25 million per, which is what Hronek signed for about an hour ago. It's just surprising that this would come out, hours before puck drop tonight. Yeah. Jimmy Rutherford's like, screw it. We're in the off season. We're working. I love it. What do you make of that deal? Hronek, obviously paired really well with Quinn Hughes, young guy, mid-20s, 8 years, 7+ a year. Pretty rich, but what do you make of that?
It is rich. Very good first half of the season. Like, the point production was there. Him and Quinn Hughes caught fire for basically half a year. And it really dipped, like significantly dipped from the second half of the year onward. But he had banked basically so much currency in the first half. And I think the campaigning had already kind of started where, I think there was talk about he could get $8 million and what's the arbitration case going to look like? And, this is the perfect partner for Quinn Hughes, all that kind of stuff. So when it's all said and done and the deal comes in, 8 years is a long time for sure. 7.25 is probably, with the cap going up to 88 next year and hopefully 92 the year after, like, that will be minimized as time goes on.
Frankie,
so
we got to stop doing that. We got to stop doing that, saying, just hand it over because the cap's going. I hate that ideology.
I get the only thing, with like he had arbitration rights, and what does that arb case look like? So if you're just going to get to 7.25, whether you go there, like, just then do it at that point. I think it's different when it comes to UFA guys. It's like a house with UFA. How much are you willing to pay for that house?
Let me ask you this. Detroit was willing to walk away from the player or move him. Would you have paid him that money?
7.25? No. I would have wanted him for 6.5.
That's all I wanted to hear.
That's all you need
Detroit,
to hear.
Keep in mind, Detroit wasn't – they were willing to move. They saw the contract coming.
Yes,
and they've got to sign Sider. They've got decisions to make in house. So I don't
Noodles,
think
but they still said they regardless of the money, they could have made it work and moved somebody else out to keep him if they wanted him that bad.
Put it this way: if it came in at $8 million, like the campaigning was, I would have ran from that as fast as I possibly could. At 7.25. I don't love it, but I can probably still justify it and make things work around it because I would rather have good players than bad players. But no, to be honest, Detroit probably saw it coming and said, this guy, like, think about some of the guys that are UFAs this year that are going to sign for $6 million.
I get it. You know what? I just don't want to hand him the contract, Frank. Yeah. And then after a playoff series, somebody look at him and say, where exactly were you?
Well, my point is there's going to be players that are just as good that sign for $1.25 million less than that in UFA this year. Like, that's going to be where you look at it and say, did we have to pay him 7.25 to your point?
Well, and I think the reason for that is because it was term, right? So if Hronek hears from the team, hey, we want to sign you long term, then his leverage is, okay, then you like me, so you better pay me because you think I'm going to be a valuable piece for a long time,
right?
And you're buying up UFA years. That's the great, like 7.25. You're splitting some hairs. Every dollar counts. Don't get me wrong, but going from he's got arb rights and that could cost us for a year to screw it, we'll give him 8 years is a big leap. That's substantial.
And how many 26-year-old right shot defensemen are UFAs this summer, and what are they going to get paid?
Well, they're all 30. Like all the guys that are UFAs are 28 to 30. So I also would imagine there's got to be a little bit of a fear there based on what that organization went through the last 8 years, where they were off the face of the hockey map, and now to having this kind of year, saying, like, why do we want to move on from guys that kind of helped us get there? But I get it. I get what O was saying about it being too much money. I think there were so many things they had to weigh.
You're right. Like 7, it does seem rich, but they just had Tyler Myers at $6 million, who's coming off the books. Mm-hmm. Would you take Hronek at 7 or Myers at 6? That's pretty much what they're doing, is plugging him in.
It just comes down to one thing for me. If I'm giving the guy that contract, I don't want any questions. You better be a damn good player and count it on a nightly basis, and not just playing off of Quinn Hughes.
And
not
for the
just
whole year, not half a year.
Every shift.
But I think what I'm saying, I think that's their top pairing for the next 8 years. That's what they're looking at. That's Makar and Taves. That's what they want. That's Hughes.
It better
and
be
Hronek.
Noodles. Like you got you got $15 million in two defensemen. It has to be.
But they're very good players when they play to their capability. Hronek didn't play well to play.
Going to win the Norris.
Yeah. Exactly. And if keep in mind, if that's the guy he wants to play with, that's the guy that they signed. Guaranteed that they probably asked him, "You want this guy to play with?" Because I think they were pretty comfortable playing together. Again, the numbers didn't jive down the stretch, and especially in the playoffs, and it was a weird trend. Remember do we have him talking? Remember he was like...
It was really awkward.
It was awkward.
Someone said, why are you so pissy? Or something. It was like a weird back and forth.
Well, because he doesn't talk much. Like they don't make him very available during the season, so he doesn't talk much.
Why?
I don't know.
That's another question.
I don't know why that is.
Obligation to do that. Now, if you're in the market for 9.5 years,
yes, you should talk if you're in the market for 8 years. And I think it was a very fair line of questioning. They just wanted to know, are you hurt? Why the big drop off? And he gave like one-word answers, and he was all pissy about it.
Yeah. But you have to wonder if his English is, suspect as well, or if he's playing that card too, because he was very chippy. It was a weird conversation. And I thought that, you're not going to end the season. And I remember people coming out of that press conference going, well, that guy's not signing here. Why the hell would he sign here? And now he just signs an 8-year
Well,
extension.
and it wasn't like the old days, the old days in Vancouver. You had some ornery kind of old school beat writers that used to really drag it out of you. It's not like that anymore. Like it's still it's a hot market for sure, but it was lightweight stuff that was getting lobbed his way. I think for that kind of money, too, like if you make that kind of money, you can kind of spend 2 minutes and just talk to the guys and give them a little something. It's a lot of money.
Although at the same time, he might look at it now saying, hey, I got my money in term. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
right? I'm not doing a thing because go talk to them. They gave it to me. This is who I am. I'm not sure if it's going to change, his interactions. But in terms of the other defensemen that are on the market, you've obviously got Montour. You've got Tanev. You got Pesce out there. There's a number of defensemen that are, pretty good players and available. I don't think anyone's going to get a full 7-year term. Maybe Montour.
Maybe.
Yes, Montour could. Pesce, I don't think. Well, Tanev definitely won't at his age. Where do you see that market going in a couple of weeks?
So if your team has needed a right-handed defenseman or two and they don't acquire them this year, then everyone should probably be fired, because there are so many good right-handed defensemen available to you this year. And it's not just $7 million or $6 million. Like, there's varying ranges of term and cap hit that you can get these guys at. Like, the higher end is going to be the Montour, and then lower than that is Pesce, probably around $6 million would be the ask. Montour's probably looking in like the 7.25 to 7.5. And then it goes down to the Sean Walker, Chris Tanev, like high fours. Matt Roy, the kid out of LA, is probably a $5 million defenseman. Like
what about the mutant in Vancouver?
Yeah,
Tyler Myers.
and there you go. Like
Zadorov, you mean?
Zadorov.
Oh, yeah. Zadorov. Well, he's left-handed shot. There's another guy who I wonder, like the almost the campaigning for his contract, like saying like 6x6. That's not going to happen. He's a third line or a third pair defenseman. But does he creep into the fives? I wouldn't be shocked if a team looked at what he did in the playoffs and some of the clips against McDavid and says, we'll give you an extra $500,000 because that's what we think we need in the playoffs. But there's so many right-handed defensemen and good ones that are actually available at different prices, and they could fit different things for you. Like if you're Ottawa and you need like a stabilizing presence back there, do you have a few extra bucks to spend on Chris Tanev to kind of lure him there, or do you give him an extra year? I don't know. There's different things for different teams available this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and then you do have left shot defensemen that can play on both sides. May not be ideal, but a guy like Joel Edmondson's an interesting guy. Because he's a third pairing guy, beast of a guy, but he's won a cup, into cup finals. I think he's 30 or 31. I don't know. Like, I don't think that's a long-term deal. Maybe a 2 or 3 year deal at a couple million maybe to get him in. But
pretty much, he was 1.75 this year. He'll probably get a little bit of a raise. Like Noodles, you mentioned Tyler Myers, who's going to make half or maybe even less than what he was making. Like, would you want to bring him in on a short-term deal? Like he's big, he's long, he can, when utilized properly. You saw how effective he was for Vancouver this year, not playing him 22 minutes a night.
Well, and he's got some bite. Could he play a third pairing guy on a good team? And you don't have to. He's 34. He's made a bunch of money. You could somebody going to get him on a cheap rate on a 2 or 3 year deal. That might you might be looking at him. I mean,
$3 million bucks. Yeah. That'd be fine. Like those are the things that are digestible. I don't know. Like there's going to be like last year Orlov, who's basically the top UFA defenseman. He signs a 2-year deal, 2-year ticket at 7.75 to get his AAV up, but he doesn't have any term attached to it.
Wasn't it a 1-year deal in Carolina?
I thought it was 2 years. Like I think he's got 1 more year left, but that's going to be a hard comparison because he took such short term on that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
and that
2 years.
That was surprising. Yeah, 2 years, but he had played so well the year before, was so good in ball, like you said.
I'm fascinated by Chicago this year. Like, don't you think with Connor Bedard there now, it's time to maybe not expedite the process?
I've been saying it since he stepped foot in Chicago.
So here you go. Now you have an opportunity to surround this guy with a fresh slate of good players, good people, good defensemen. Like you can actually start building for the future around this guy and not just say we got to build through the draft because that's going to take a million years and it might not even happen.
Yeah, I still think you need that though, Frankie. I mean, I don't. You can't surround him and build a cup winning team based on free agency. I mean that isn't going to happen.
But it can
get
help.
A good player.
It can
They're
help.
going to get a good player this year.
It can help. You can augment it absolutely, but. There's still only so much money that can go around. They've thrown money around just to keep veterans there. You see Gensel's name linked there. I still think Chicago's 2 or 3 years away at least from turning a corner into a position where they're actually, contending for something.
But doesn't a part of you say, let's just not be garbage again? Like, isn't it worth it to just build it up?
I guess if you're signing guys for 2 or 3 years. But do you want to sign a guy? Why would you give a guy a 7-year deal at monster money if you know the last 3 or 4 years of his deal he's going to tail off and you're not going to be good for
I do agree with
4
that.
years.
You're talking about
fair.
some guys bringing in guys at 2 or 3 year deals, but they're going to say, I got a 7-year deal waiting elsewhere, so screw you.
Well, exactly.
You need flexibility.
That's why if I'm Chicago, I'm not rushing it personally.
Isn't part of it too, like with Bedard wanting to say this kid can be a superstar, but we also need to surround him with good players in order to help him become a superstar? Isn't that a big part of what they have going forward?
But look at the great like duos or whatever the last 15 years. They were drafted together. McDavid's got Draisaitl. Sid had Gino, right? Matthews has Marner, if you want to use that.
Yep.
Like that's how you get it. But they got a hit again on the draft.
They got the number 2 pick and the number 18th pick.
Yeah.
Like they got 2 first rounders here. You might hit somebody at 2, or you better hit somebody at 2.
You have
and then maybe you wheel the 18th pick for a guy who is a good player, an NHL player, right?
And you get into the Griffin Reinhart situation. Right, we need help right now because we have McDavid. I'd probably rather have Matt Barzal.
What a
personally.
pluck that was, the Griffin Reinhart.
But it was the same mentality. We got this kid. Get going. Got to make something happen now. Who would you rather have, Matt Barzal or Griffin Reinhart?
No, I understand, but that
Come
one.
on.
Did Edmonton have multiple picks and they traded like that?
Yes, they took McDavid first, and they traded like the 16th pick overall for Griffin Reinhart that turned into Matthew Barzal.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, we got McDavid. We got to get going. Not smart.
Let's call that an error in judgment.
But that is an error.
Yes.
But that's
Frankie,
before
before we get you out of here, if you were at a garage sale up in Vaughan and there was 2 vases beside each other and one said Bryan Hayes brain cells and the other one said O-Dog's brain cells, which vase would you buy?
What is it? Like what kind of a question is
this? These guys are
Dude,
selling brain cells right now.
We're selling brain cells.
Dude,
Yeah.
you have to answer the question. You have an opportunity to buy one of our brain cells and insert them into your own brain.
I want the O-Dog's brain cells just based on the curiosity of what the hell is going on in there at all times, because I have a feeling it would be a wild ride that I would love to be a part of and know
like
exactly
taking a
what's
bong
happening.
hit with Laramie Tunsil's gas mask. you put
Look
O's
at Hayes
brain
is
cells.
winning.
Take that down. It doesn't come up until the end of the show.
We'll come back and give you the final run. But
by the way, you know what Doogie
bud.
said to me today when I walked in? He goes, I guess if you could get a FaceTime with Nathan McKinnon, you could get a FaceTime with anybody. How about that?
Yeah, Doogie's a big shooter, man. The
hero
president of
now.
the company's down there shaking his hand later, saying, I love you,
The thing is,
Doogie.
the guy's pitching something, and he probably called Doogie for it. And it's Doogie, you didn't do squat.
No, Doogie brought
Fell
the heat,
right into
man.
his
Doogie's
lap.
crushing
That's
it.
what it was.
I fell into his lap.
We figured out that he's actually a mole. He's trying to get us all fired based on the music he's playing, but the McKinnon hit was a beauty. Good shot.
Yeah,
Good
it
stuff
was.
by Doogie. All right, Frankie. Good seeing you, man.
See you, boys.
Frankie Corrado. We'll come back with our best bets. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. The Cup comes out tonight. The Cup is won tonight. I'm going back to the well like I did Game 4. Panthers money line under the number, 5.5 goals. I think Panthers in a tightly contested, nerve-wracking type game. I'm going with the Panthers money line and the under tonight. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. FanDuel's goal in the first 10 minutes is the most electric bet in hockey and can be included in a same-game parlay on any NHL game. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 plus. Physically located in Ontario. The final update. Whose brain cells would you purchase if you had the opportunity? Now, purchasing, I would say giving away for free. You know, we're charitable guys. Hayes in a landslide here, 65-35.
Wow.
Yeah,
That I didn't see coming.
that's just getting torched. And those are sympathy votes, I think, for the big guy. He's not listening anymore, so I'll just torch him on the way out. Look at this idiot. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Look at how stupid
You want to
he is.
rig?
Oh,
you
he's
want
back.
to? What are you, Trump? You want to rig polls? That's what you want to do.
What is it?
Rigging polls. All right, that's a shame. Victorious. I guess I have to do this, Noodles. You and I have to do this on the way out. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. We appreciate that. We're out of here. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.
then.